I froze the moment I stepped inside. The walls, the floorboards, even the smell of the living room. It wasn't mine anymore. Boxes labeled with someone else's name crowded the corners. A man I had never met smiled at me as if I had walked into the wrong house. And then I saw him, my father, Richard Whitmore. His smug expression said everything. I win. What did you do? I whispered. He barely flinched. Sold it. The house is gone, Nathan, move on. I clenched my fists. I wanted to scream, to hit, to crumble, but I didn't. Calm was my weapon. I'll make him regret this. Let's wait here before we continue. Please do not forget to like, share, subscribe, and also drop your comment below. Let's continue. I'm Nathan Whitmore, always the quiet one, always the overlooked son. Growing up, my older brother got all the attention, all the praise. I got jokes, comparisons, and public humiliation. Every family gathering, my failures were on display, and now my father had crossed the line. He sold the one thing that tied me to my past, erased my childhood with a single signature. But anger alone wouldn't win. Strategy would, patience, observation, and a plan he'd never see coming. I walked back through the empty streets of my old neighborhood, counting every house, every tree, every memory that my father thought he could erase. He never realized that memories aren't just in walls, they're in people, and I was still here. I scribbled notes in my old notebook. Richard's ego, weak spots, pride, obsession with control, public image. If he thought he could humiliate me once without consequence, he had another thing coming. I started small. I attended family gatherings under the guise of reconciliation. Every word, every gesture my father made was a thread I could pull. He bragged about investments, made sly digs about my career, flaunted favors he had given my brother. I smiled politely, nodded, listened. I was invisible, but I was absorbing everything. I discovered that my father had mismanaged one of his side investments. A minor oversight, unnoticed by most, but to me it was an opening. I quietly confirmed the details, printed documents, and left subtle hints in the right hands, lawyers, accountants, associates he trusted. The domino was set, and I could see the first crack forming in his armor. During a small family dinner, he started one of his usual tirades about how I never achieved anything. I let him go, smiled. Later, I emailed the same group, including distant family members, proof of his minor financial mismanagement. Whispers started, eyes widened, my father's smug grin faltered. For the first time I felt power. Quiet, calculated power. I visited my old bedroom, now empty, and sat on the edge of the bed. My father thought selling the house erased me, but memories are mine. My childhood trophies, my old journals, the scent of crayons on paper, they were indelible. I left behind nothing, but I carried everything with me, every lesson, every sting of humiliation, and turned it into fuel. Research became my obsession. I pored over property laws, loopholes, contracts. A single clause, buried in fine print, could give me leverage over the sale he thought final. It would take time, patience, and precision, but I was no stranger to careful planning. By the end, I could turn his arrogance against him. I enlisted an old neighbor, someone my father never suspected. He had seen my father make reckless decisions, and he was willing to help if guided correctly. I provided subtle nudges, hints, and watched as small events unfolded naturally. Every tiny shift increased my father's vulnerability without him realizing I was behind it. I planted a minor rumor about a potential oversight in his property dealings at a small networking event. By the next morning, whispers of doubt circulated in his social circle. I didn't celebrate. I smiled quietly. One small victory, one crack in the facade. I sent a formal legal letter questioning the sale of the house, citing procedural oversights and my inherited rights. I didn't yell, I didn't demand, I merely laid the groundwork. My father read it and laughed at first, but there was hesitation, a tiny sliver of fear. From my apartment, I observed. My father's usual arrogance was replaced by restless packing, whispered phone calls, and brief, panicked looks at his lawyer. He had never been forced to defend himself so meticulously, and I hadn't even made my move yet. Digging deeper, I discovered he had hidden debts and obligations that he had always used to intimidate others. If revealed at the right moment, in the right context, it could topple him publicly. I smiled. Every brick of arrogance he had built would be shaken by the truth. I subtly guided my brother to question Dad's decisions. Not directly, never directly, but through casual conversation, hints, and strategic questions. My father's control over family opinion began to crumble as his own son started seeing the cracks he'd long ignored. During a formal dinner, I let him corner me, expecting his usual ridicule. I listened, nodded, smiled. Then calmly, I referenced the financial discrepancies and legal oversights I had uncovered. The room went silent. His confident posture faltered. Eyes darted. This was the first real blow, and he knew it. Just when he thought he was regaining control, a distant relative, guided by my prior nudges, revealed an old secret. A previously undisclosed loan my father had taken out, one that contradicted his public persona. Gasps, murmurs, and disbelief surrounded him. I had planned it to coincide perfectly. I began meeting him in public, calm, composed, unbothered. Every time he tried to intimidate me or boast, I deflected, redirected, or subtly reminded others of his mistakes. His frustration grew. The once unshakable patriarch was now constantly off balance. A minor misstep, a casual comment, an unexpected visitor almost exposed my plan prematurely. My heart pounded, but calm thinking, preparation, and improvisation saved the day. I learned a vital lesson: patience is more powerful than impulse. I anonymously sent my father's financial missteps to a reputable local news outlet. The story wasn't sensationalized, it was factual. It was undeniable. Friends, colleagues, neighbors, and family started questioning him openly. Pride became vulnerability. I had orchestrated it so the truth would sting hardest in his own circles. He began losing allies, as subtle manipulations and revealed secrets eroded trust. Invitations to social events dwindled, old friends became wary, and the respect he had flaunted for decades was replaced with doubt. He had built a fortress of ego, but it had cracks everywhere I had placed them. I visited the neighborhood again. I didn't need the house. I walked past it, past strangers living my memories, and smiled quietly. The real victory wasn't taking the house back. It was reclaiming my power, showing my father that control and pride aren't worth much if integrity is gone. At a family gathering, I calmly addressed everyone. The debts, the mismanaged properties, the lies. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I simply laid the facts bare. My father tried to interrupt, to deny, but the room turned against him. The once proud man shrank under the weight of truth. My long game had succeeded. He lost credibility, influence, and respect. The community and family saw him as flawed, fallible, and arrogant. My careful, calculated actions had led to poetic justice. His own ego had paved the way for his downfall. I watched quietly as the man who had humiliated me repeatedly faced the consequences of his own actions. I didn't gloat, I didn't rub it in. I lived quietly, successfully, and confidently. I had reclaimed my dignity without resorting to petty revenge or illegal moves. I had turned betrayal into empowerment. I walked away stronger, proud, and unbroken. The house was gone, my father's control was gone, but I gained something far greater: self-worth, clarity, and the knowledge that calm, deliberate action beats impulsive rage every time. Betrayal doesn't define you, how you respond does. I walked into the future with confidence, leaving him to stare at the ruins of arrogance he had built, and in that I found freedom.